Yo, what's up everyone? It's Cello C and welcome back to the channel. Hope y'all been enjoying the video that I just put out, I think yesterday. I got a little bit of video fever, man. There's a lot to talk about in the hip hop spectrum and also in pop culture. And I do want to expand this past hip hop. It's not just hip hop. I do primarily want to talk about hip hop, but YouTube news is on the table and stuff like that. But just kind of looking around, kind of figuring out what I want to do. But hopefully you guys have been enjoying it because I know I have been kind of having fun just talking to the mic and giving my opinion on certain things. But without further ado, I want to just say, make sure that if you like the videos, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications, as it does help the channel. And it just helps me, get more in the algorithm and things of that nature if you're enjoying it and you want to see more of it. But today, you guys, as you can see from the thumbnail and the title, are going to be talking about the Joe Budden Podcast. Now, I've been a fan of the Joe Budden Podcast for at least, I would say, 2 years now. Watching every single episode. I would say the Joe Budden Podcast has gotten me through some of the worst times in my life. When I was working at a gas station and hated my job and didn't really have, I didn't really have a structure on life. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And Joe Budden's podcast, not only did it stop me from almost killing myself, not literally, but just being in a fucking gas station, fucking mopping the goddamn floors and hating every person who came through the goddamn door. He helped take my mind off of that. Also, on another hand, he inspired me as a person who creates and has been creating since I was a little kid to believe in myself, believe in my worth, and continue to push forward and try to go for the bag in the best way that I know how, and just know my worth. Don't take anything less than my worth. You know what I'm saying? And I will always appreciate not only Joe, but the whole podcast for just being that space. It also was a free space for men to just talk like men, at least before the Spotify thing, or I would say at least before the Spotify deal. And then even a little bit in the middle of the Spotify deal, they were still giving it up. But at some point they stopped. I didn't finish my sentence, but I really like the fact that they could say what they wanted to say and get off what they wanted to get off and have the conversations that usually are housed in barbershops and things of that nature in a nice setting. And it didn't seem like they were afraid to say anything. They didn't really care about their industry ties, and they talked about everyone, and they kind of just gave insider information that you wouldn't be privy to if you wasn't watching the Joe Budden Podcast. And I really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed that. I think mid Spotify, into the Spotify deal, I started to fall off, especially when they separated from Spotify, because it just seemed like it stopped being the Joe Budden Podcast and the Creators Podcast, where he just talks about know your worth. Creator, if you're a creator, know your worth. It was almost every episode, it was an hour rant on creators and how you got to get your bag. And I love it. Like I said before, it was one of the reasons why I fuck with the podcast, but a little bit too much than what I came for, Another thing that I loved about the podcast was Rury and Maul. Even though I'm sure that they're replaceable, I did like the fact that Rury and Maul challenged Joe. They got the best out of Joe, which made the podcast great. Rury would challenge Joe in a lot of ways. I like the way that Rury challenged Joe. Maul would also challenge Joe in a way that was just more he was too cool. Maul was too cool for everything. And it's kind of a joke. It's a running joke, but it's a part of his charm too. But he was just too cool for everything. He would also tell Joe, yo, you tripping. Yo, you being wild right now. Yo, don't even talk to me like that. What you want right now? And that was the connection that they all had. And I fucked with it heavy. I found out about the Joe Budden Podcast after Everyday Struggle. I was a big fan of Akademiks, and Everyday Struggle ended up making me a fan of Joe Budden. And I'm sure that's how a lot of people found out about Joe Budden and how he got the rise and fame that he has now. It's probably because of Akademiks. Let's just be fair. But I say that to say this. This is all coming to an end now. Joe Budden Podcast has been going through a lot of shit. And honestly, I don't want to go through all of it, as this video would be too long. But just for a little up, you know what I'm saying? Essentially, Joe Budden, it's all started with a Spotify deal. They got out of the Spotify deal. Little shit happened in between. Doesn't really matter. I stopped watching after all of this. So a lot of people may know a lot more about this because I after the Spotify deal, not gonna lie, didn't really care for the podcast anymore. It just wasn't what it used to be. And then all of a sudden I heard that Rury and Maul wasn't on the podcast. He had these two other niggas there. And honestly, they just look like off-brand Rury and Maul. I mean, one is light-skinned, but the Maul dude, come on, man. It just seemed like he just found the most off-brand people to just fill in the shoes, which I mean, I know that, Joe was the real carrier of the podcast, it was just really about Joe's opinions and Joe's perspective on things. And they just kind of brought it out. They continued the conversation. which is what you need in a podcast. But it was just kind of weird that he just up and replaced them. And then come to turn out, it's a walkout. It's a walkout. They walked out for some certain reason. They say it's not about money, but later on you'll see it kind of was. And essentially the problems between them was the fact that apparently Rury and Maul was in a profit sharing split with Joe Budden, which essentially means that they got a percentage of the overall profits that came from the podcast. And any deals and branding things that may have came with the podcast, they received a certain profit share from it, which is completely contrary of what was kind of circling around. A lot of people thought, including me, because I've heard it from Akademiks, or I've heard it from Joe Budden, or to some extent I've heard it from Joe Budden, and it kind of leaned towards it. But I thought they got paid in salary, which essentially means they got paid a set fee for them to do their job. They were employees essentially. But when you hear Rury and Maul, which they released their own sort of podcast or little response video to Joe Budden and his rants and things like that, they weren't getting paid salary. They were getting paid profit share. Now, I say all of this. This is all a jumbled mess because like I'm just kind of like coming out of this brand new and the information is all just fluttering to me, and I wanted to make a video really, really quick. But essentially, Joe Budden snaked his friends. This is what I've grabbed from it. And Akademiks, I'm going to say, bro, shame on you, bro. Like, I'm a big fan, but what you are doing right now, I don't care what anger or hate you have towards Rury and Maul. You have to be objective. You know, like you're clouding your judgment and it's stopping you from being objective. Though you have good points, it's like you repeated points just because you had nothing to say against them. If you watch the stream, Akademiks made a whole video and structure. He did it for when they first left, and then he did it again after they left again. And then once they made a response, he did it again. And I love the first two. He was going off for them niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love when Akademiks get in his fucking bag. It's hilarious. But once they started actually responding to Joe in their own video and they had good points, and yeah, they were stupid. Yeah, they were talking a lot of shit on the podcast when they didn't know their own business. But at the end of the day, they still got snaked by Joe Budden. And you can't deny it, especially if everything that they say is true. And I'm not the one to just sit here and listen to these celebrities and all of these people on the internet and think that their side of the story is the only side of the story, or that they're 100% right and there's no flaw, there's no lies. I know that Joe Budden, Rury, and Maul are capable of lying for their best interests. So I'm not going to say that. But if we're going to take everything at face value and keep it a buck, Joe Budden is completely wrong. Joe Budden has not only snaked his friends in not being completely transparent with them. Whenever they asked for information, he gave them rage and horrible answers to it. Maul and Rury even said in the podcast, they asked about seeing the accounting, right? They just asked this because, of course, it's profit sharing. Because the way he made it seem, they were on salary. They had to get the same amount every month. Their amount that they got was a set amount, check by check, right? Or it might got a bonus on it, but check by check, they knew what they were supposed to get. So, in everyone else's head, it's like, oh, so yeah, they're stupid. You just look at how many checks you got. Does it add up? It might look more than what you got. So then, niggas, shut the fuck up. But if it's not the case and they were profit share partners or whatever the case may be, you do need accounting to know if what you got is what you got, because percentages isn't just a, hey, check. A percentage is a whatever of the gross amount that they made. And if they don't know the gross amount of what they made, how do they know they're getting the proper money? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you can do the math. Yeah, I mean, Joe said, do you have a calculator? Yeah, I have a calculator, but that just doesn't make fucking sense, my guy. Allow me to see how much I'm getting paid. And what he responded to them was, nigga, audit me. You know? Audit me. And if you don't know the process for auditing, it's pretty much you have to sue the person. You have to sue the person and say, hey, this person, I believe this person may be doing the wrong things with the company and I deserve to get audited. And you have to sue, and then the court has to say, yeah, he deserves the audit. And then if they feel you deserve the audit and you win, then you get the audit, but there's always the chance that you can lose and you don't get the audit. That is crazy. That is crazy for a friend of yours that you're doing business with to snap on you for asking to see the accountant. So there's a lot of shady stuff going on. And honestly, to be fair, the Joe Budden podcast died a long time ago. So it is no skin off my back if Joe decides to do the shit that he decides to do, I'm not going to support it either way. I was there for a certain thing. That thing is left. And honestly, it left a long time ago, whether Rury and Maul was there or not. So I don't really care. But it's just crazy how the people that I thought were really friends, and Joe Budden, who I thought was a genuine person who was getting fucked over in the industry, is a predator himself. It's just a little weird. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I went on a little bit of a ramble about my thoughts on Joe Budden Podcast, but hey man, that's what these videos are for right now. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications if you would like to be notified when I post. But yeah, I'm out, man. Peace.